52 million students, 440,000 schools, and around 4.5 million teachers. Schools are communicating with parents over WhatsApp, and it can get very, very messy. You change one cell, the whole system can blow up in your face. There's a lot of risk around those types of systems and those types of manual processes.
You're listening to Around the School Table, hosted by me, Steve Davis, and proudly powered by Zuno Suite. We'll be bringing together the many voices shaping primary and secondary education across Australia, from principals and teachers to education thought leaders and system innovators. Whether you're in the classroom, the staff room, or the boardroom, this is your podcast to be informed, inspired, and connected. Today on Around the School Table, we're joined by James Thomas, Managing Director of Digital Education Partnerships Indonesia, or DEPI for short, a consultancy helping edtech companies scale across Indonesia's vast and diverse school system. James navigates the unique challenges of the world's largest education markets, from WhatsApp-run schools to TPPK child protection mandates, and the shift from spreadsheets to smart systems. And in this chat, he'll be helping us clarify LMS versus SMS, etc., tackles anti-bullying realities, and shares a practical playbook for school leaders on payments, implementation, and building resilient operations. I think this chat promises to share some grounded, actionable insights as well. James, welcome to Around the School Table.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Now, for people who don't know you yet, can you explain what is DEPI and what do you actually do in Indonesia's school market?
So DEPI is Digital Education Partnerships Indonesia. In Indonesia, they love to use acronyms, and DEPI, the name of the company, hopefully is quite self-explanatory. So we are a consultancy that helps international edtech companies navigate the quite complex Indonesian education landscape. So we provide go-to-market consultancy services, and we then execute on those marketing plans to help these edtech companies develop meaningful traction and develop strong relationships within the Indonesian education landscape. It's quite a complex one. There's, on the face of it, a very, very big market here. 52 million students, 440,000 schools, and around 4.5 million teachers. Around 86% of those are under the Ministry of Education, so these are government schools. But there's a very, very big market of around 50,000 schools which fall under the Ministry of Religious Affairs. So these are fee-paying schools. Quite a number of them are aspirational international curriculum schools as well. But in terms of international schools, conventionally what we'd refer to them in Indonesia, they're called SPK schools, which is Satuan Pendidikan Kerjasama. So that's a cooperation-based school model involving a school utilizing UK curriculum, IB curriculum, AP, etc.
Those numbers you just shared, they're mind-boggling for an Australian. Like millions of teachers, I think you said 3.5 million teachers.
4.5 million teachers, yeah. And that's why Indonesia is so interesting on the face of it, because there's so much market potential here for international edtech companies that want to access the market, but they don't really know where to start. Indonesia is very much a market where you need to build trust, you need to build networks, you need to build relationships. And so DEPI kind of sits at that intersection between, international edtech provider and, local schools. And we help to be that bridge for implementation and building those strong relationships.
Now, you've mentioned international schools, and people hear the term international school. I remember when I lived in Hungary, I knew there were international schools. We just assume that an international school, the systems there are going to be mature. It's top of the shelf. In Indonesia, what's the actual reality in these? I think you referred to SPK schools.
As part of our market research through our partnership with Zuno, we surveyed around 100 SPK schools. So these are schools that are licensed to offer international curriculum. And we identified that 72% use some form of an LMS, or a learning management system, primarily focused around curriculum, student learning, teaching and learning, etc. But actually only around 28% use a dedicated school management system. So the core kind of operational background around, attendance, around finance, and school security, etc.
Does that surprise you?
In Indonesia, I think primarily schools have led with the curriculum, so they've adopted an LMS. But what we've seen is that schools are mostly communicating with parents as a primary communication tool using WhatsApp. So 58% of schools are using WhatsApp as a primary parent communication channel. But what we've seen, and we're speaking to a number of the leading schools in Indonesia, it's not just the kind of tier 2, tier 3, the lower fee schools, but even the leading schools are having particular problems around their finance workflows. So that's where a student management system can come in and help to integrate between finance platforms like Oracle or Xero, and help to reduce some of the manual workload, where there's also a lot of risk for human error as well. So it's been a very interesting exercise actually in the last few months, because we've had a lot of schools talking to us about finance and events. So problems around parent payment, both for admissions, but also for extracurricular fees, etc. And the very kind of manual workflows that schools have at the moment. So particularly around the finance side, there's a lot of market opportunity in Indonesia, and that's what we're hearing from schools at the moment.
I want to go back though. When you mentioned LMS before, a lot of schools have a learning management system, and they kind of think it solves everything. It probably is worth just teasing apart specifically the big differences between LMS, SMS, and the SIS layer that you talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot of acronyms flying around in the market at the moment. So, in short, an LMS is lesson delivery, assignments, classroom workflows. It's around the student, right, and the student's learning journey. A school management system is more focused on attendance, well-being, behavior, parent communication, permissions, operational workflows, and as I mentioned, often payments and events. And then there's the SIS, which is kind of almost like a layer which sits in between systems, and it becomes the integration and workflow engine, kind of without forcing a school to necessarily replace any of their systems, but it helps to connect them and optimize the workflows in between, let's say, an SMS and an LMS. So, there's providers like Toddle, which is predominantly an LMS provider centered around curriculum. However, they are now increasingly, companies like Toddle trying to become more of an SMS by integrating, modular components like, attendance, reporting, and even trying to incorporate, finance modules as well.
So you've hinted at some of the things that schools are struggling with. When you actually talk to school leadership teams, what do they tell you? What do they confide in you, especially with operational pain? What floats to the surface?
Yeah, good question. So I think there's 4 or 5 points here. Finance and payment workflows particularly are key challenges. So billing complexity, schools having to chase late payments, event payments. A lot of schools also have like a development funds, and whereas some parents, they like to pay for this perhaps, upfront over 2 or 3 years. And so there's a lot of complex logic, and a number of schools that we've looked at have very, very complex, Excel spreadsheets where, you change one cell, and the whole system can just, blow up in your face. So there's a lot of risk around those types of systems, and those types of manual processes. Also fragmented systems. So, having, let's say, an LMS for your, attendance, but also having a bit of overlap with your SMS, and, what system is kind of the school's one truth. So there's certain, overlap between the two. And schools think that, they've got an LMS, they've got, things covered, but then they've got these very fragmented, core operational systems, like, really is particularly the finance side of things. One of the other key points to mention is about parent-school communication, and just the very kind of offline communication channels. There's WhatsApp. There's no kind of school. They're not really using, if they're not using an LMS, where there's a good percentage of the higher fee paying schools are using those types of systems here, but otherwise, schools are communicating with parents over WhatsApp, and it can get very, very messy. Particularly with schools with, several hundred students. There's obviously a lot of manual, follow-up to do, without using a central school system like an SMS, for example.
That use of WhatsApp seems to me to marry to a trend within perhaps non-Western countries and emerging markets, etc., because of the ubiquity of the mobile phone. There's a lot of app-based interactions generally in society. Does that make sense to you as to why that just works its way into the school system too?
When we look at Indonesia, it also comes down to budget. WhatsApp is a free channel for them to use. And most schools will have, parent-teacher groups, which, unfortunately for poor teachers means that they're getting questions fired at them, every hour of the day, seemingly. So a lot of teachers we've spoken to just, are constantly being bombarded by questions from parents, because there's seemingly a very open, direct channel to speak to them. So that does become a bit of a problem, and also there's a wellbeing piece around that, where teachers don't really have any chance to escape.
Wow, that's a far cry from the teachers at our primary school here in Australia, where the principal put out a policy that you can email your teacher. But we've told the teachers they're not checking their email after work. They will check them at certain times through the day. It's really hard to police that with WhatsApp, because that notification pops up no matter what.
Correct.
Managing school communication, student progress, and daily operations can be overwhelming. From tracking student performance to managing staff schedules and keeping parents in the loop, it's easy to get lost in the chaos. But it doesn't have to be. Meet Zuno, a simple, powerful, all-in-one school management solution that brings everything and everyone together in one place. Trusted by over 500,000 staff, parents and students, Zuno adapts to your unique needs, offering seamless integration and exceptional support every step of the way. With Zuno, schools save time, parents stay connected, and students can thrive, creating a stronger and more engaged school community. Ready to transform the way your school operates? Visit zuno.com.au today and experience the power of simplicity.
You did also survey a number of schools, I think it was 100 or so, about their current operational systems. We've talked about some of the things, but is there anything from the analysis that we haven't touched on yet, a trend or something you've observed?
So actually, something in Indonesia which which is a kind of a new concept is safeguarding, and well-being is another kind of piece of the student management system. From Zuno, they have an incident and reporting module. And in Indonesia in 2023, there was a mandate issued by the government called the TPPK mandate, which required all schools to have a safeguarding committee comprising of at least a parent and 2 staff members. However, in the practical provision of training, the government unfortunately does not have a kind of centralized platform to provide training for schools. A lot of the training is done kind of face-to-face, where staff will go away for a day or two, and their role is to then come back and educate the rest of the school community. So in terms of reporting these incidents, there's also kind of a big gap. Prabowo came out the other day and issued a very strong statement about how he wanted to really clamp down on bullying. There's a big bullying problem here in Indonesia. And so this mandate is centered around having a structured committee to provide support to students in the school, but also for them to be the point persons to provide training to staff. So where incident and reporting comes in with a student management system is really valuable, because of course you need to identify and respond to those child protection incidents within the school. And if they're not being recorded in the right manner, and if they're not being escalated to the right people, then that also becomes a bit of a challenge. And then there's the visibility for parents as well. And that's where the benefit of an SMS comes in, so that parents can also have oversight of any of these types of child protection cases that might involve their children within the school as well.
Despite that very hands-on and slower process of getting this through the system, are there promising signs that it's making impact? Because bullying is something, it chills most of us when we hear about it. It's just one of the worst aspects of humankind. Is it working?
So there's another organization I work with called Teach Up, actually, and they provide bilingual safeguarding and child protection training. And they've seen a huge uptake in demand for their training, because it's whole school. So in Indonesia, there's some training. Some schools have a safeguarding policy, but surprisingly not many. And a lot of schools are looking for external training providers like Teach Up to be able to support the practical implementation of that mandate, because every school must have a committee, and they must file that paperwork to the ministry. But the reality of the day-to-day training and then the reporting of incidents in a school is still very murky. And so having an incident reporting platform within a student management system gives more visibility to incidents that are happening in the school. But then, external providers like Teach Up come in and provide that practical whole school training, which is, international best practice. But a lot of schools in Indonesia still feel like, they just need to train the teachers. But ultimately, any staff member that has any form of engagement with a student in a school has a responsibility to understand how to identify, respond to, and report child protection cases in the school.
So reaching out to arrange more of that training, that's a good sign. I'll take that as a good sign, because the awareness is the first step. It's a very complex picture that you've painted with the way the state of play is across Indonesia at the moment, probably not just Indonesia, but elsewhere as well. A lot of systems rollouts fail. Why do some of them fail? And what's your playbook to avoid that, to make a rollout successful?
Most school system projects fail for one reason. They're treated like a bit of an IT install and not an organizational change, so to speak. So in Indonesia, a common pattern is unclear ownership. Also, I think trying to do too much too fast. So what we've done with quite a number of schools is we've adopted more of a phased approach. So rather than trying to change the whole system all in one go, it's doing it in incremental bite-sized chunks and addressing, okay, what are the high priority items which can reduce as much of the manual kind of headaches, rather than trying to change the whole system. A number of schools that we've been speaking with, maybe they're not happy with their current student management system, but Zuno coming in, for example, as an SIS layer, means that they don't have to change their whole system. And a lot of schools are very nervous about change because of the change management involved in that. And again, coming back to who's going to own that. There's also, the time of the year. When is a good time to have a, whole system change? Never really. Even in the summer where a school's got necessarily a month off, but all of the key staff, they're away, they're on holiday. Having bite-sized, a kind of phased approach to change is, I think, important. Also, schools, from a data standpoint, can be quite messy. I think it's very important to, have someone come in with a fresh pair of eyes. So something that Zuno does in Indonesia is we offer technical workshops So we come in, we have these kind of exploratory discovery conversations, and we understand where the disconnects are, and we then create a bit of an analysis of, okay, well, if you were to have, let's say, an SIS layer above your LMS and maybe your SMS and your finance workflow, you can improve your efficiency by X, Y, and Z, reducing, countless labor hours, and just saving a lot of headaches.
So the SIS sits there like a master octopus with its tentacles into each and connecting each of the other systems.
Correct, and it's almost like a placeholder. Yeah. To some extent, you can come in and have, for example, Zuno as an SIS layer, and it can kind of run alongside your SMS system. And then, let's say, if you wanted to then move away from your SMS system, then Zuno, let's say in this example, could come in as a formal SMS, so to speak.
You've mentioned Zuno a couple of times. Why did Zuno choose to partner with DEPI? And what changes when a platform is really, truly localized for Indonesia?
Great question. So it's quite a funny story, actually. So Zuno found me using Gemini AI, and they were looking for partnerships in Indonesia. And I think, Digital Education Partnerships Indonesia, with the name of an organization like that, it's a pretty strong SEO. So they approached me to help understand the Indonesian landscape. From their market research, on the face of it, there's a huge market opportunity here. What impressed me most about the Zuno SMS platform was just the legacy, I suppose, the 35 years of expertise, all of the engineering that's gone into building that SMS. It's a very mature product, and with some careful adaptation for the Indonesian market, i.e., we've integrated a local payment gateway with a provider called Zendit to help Indonesian schools pay in IDR, so parents can pay their admissions fees, they can pay their development fees, they can also pay extracurricular fees. And also, importantly, the multilingual interface. So in Indonesia, there's actually quite a lot of Korean and Japanese expats as well. So it's not just a case of it being a bilingual platform, but a multilingual platform to help parent-school communication as well. Not every parent, let's say, that sent their children to school here, maybe a Japanese parent might not be proficient in English, and for that matter, certainly not perhaps for Indonesia. So being able to have that multilingual aspect, I think, is a real strong USP, and it's something that schools have really responded well to.
So, look, finally, if there is a school leader listening in and thinking, we need to fix this, what's the next step? So
I think the next step is understanding where are your biggest headaches. What are people stressing about in the school? Is it a finance problem? Is it a parent communication problem? Is it a security problem? So a lot of schools now are very interested in, let's say, the Zuno kiosk, because school security, of course, is a very important issue. And particularly a lot of these leading international schools here have children that go there from very prominent people in Indonesian society as well. So I think it's understanding, doing an exercise where are the biggest headaches that we're having operationally, having a conversation with a external provider to understand where there can be connections made, where we can integrate and optimize, and ultimately reduce the risk of human error and manual workflows.
Such a dense topic. James Thomas, thank you very much for joining me around the school table.
My pleasure. Thanks, Steve.